Hey, Flower Churn, it's Nayoka Nadi, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to the latest episode of the Between Worlds podcast. In this episode, we're diving deep into the woo woo with Chuck Page, QHHT and BQH practitioner. We will discuss hypnosis, religion, past lives, automatic writing, and more. Whether you're passionate about these topics or just curious about them, you won't want to miss this conversation. Subscribe now and hit that notification bell so that you're the first to catch all of our latest episodes. Let's bridge the gap between the known and the unknown together. Catch you in the episode. Peace. Hey everybody, it's your girl Nayoka Nadi, and I'm back with a brand new video for the Between Worlds podcast. I'm here with a brand new guest by the name of Chuck Page. They are a BQH and QHHT practitioner for about 3 years now, and they also have many other talents. And I'm very excited to have them come on the show and talk a little bit about the woo-woo stuff that we love to talk about so much. So here is Mr. Chuck Page.
Hello, hi, thank you for having me on.
Hey, Chuck, thank you so much for coming to the podcast. Really appreciate you here. I first met you on Facebook. You happen to have a very thriving Facebook group. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, I started a Facebook for mostly practitioners, but pretty much anyone that was interested in QHHT or BQH hypnosis. And I'm not exactly sure when I started it, but in January I only had like about 100 people in the group. And since then, it's grown to 3,500 today. So a lot of interest in this topic. So I'm glad to have this group and have a lot of people discussing different things along the lines of this topic.
Excellent. Yes, there has been a rapid growth of this conversation I've noticed about hypnosis, about consciousness and the psyche within like these last few years. And so your group is kind of showing how quickly things can happen, you
Yeah,
know.
a lot of people are waking up now, and and they're looking into ways to, I guess, deal with that waking up. Because when you wake up, you're like, you know kind of like when you wake up out of sleep, you're like, what am I going to do with this? What am I going to do with this day? And so you're like, what am I going to do with this information? This new thing I'm understanding, these new concepts I'm understanding.
Right. So thank you for creating that group because for me, I was definitely looking for people to talk to, people that have similar ideas to me, people that can challenge my ideas on these topics. So I've definitely loved the community and met a few friends already. So this was pretty cool to have that outlet that I could use.
Yes, and I try not to keep it too strict in the group. I mean, I try to keep it on topic, but of course, related to hypnosis and healing and those type of things.
So can you tell us about your journey into hypnosis and how did you become a practitioner first starting off before that? Like how did it all begin?
Well, I'd always been in search of God, so to speak, and um, somewhat religious, but also spiritual at the same time. Um, had believed in the Bible like a lot of people have. And when I was in my early 20s, I got interested in what Jehovah's Witnesses were teaching because I had a friend of mine that his sister was a Jehovah's Witness, and I went and I talked with them, and they gave me some information about the religion. So I ended up getting interested, and I ended up joining the religion. Um, so I was probably part of the religion for like 14 years, but probably within a few, even 3 or 4 years, I already started seeing things that didn't make sense or that things I didn't like about the religion. And as things came, as time went on, I came to see more and more things, um, especially, you know, things that you see in all religions today, like the hypocrisies that you see, you know, do as I say, but not as I do type of thing. Um, they teach one thing, but then they do another. Um, there's also the, whole child molestation thing, which exists in all religions, not just Jehovah's Witnesses, but a lot of the religions. But one thing that I noticed that as a witness, they're very strict on their beliefs. And so one of the beliefs that a Jehovah's Witness would hold is that the United Nations was like the anti kingdom of God, or what was against God's kingdom, because they support man's ideas for a kingdom, or for peace, or for solutions. So they had been saying this for like since the start of that religion, that the League of Nations and the United Nations were not God's kingdom, but the opposite of that. So when I started discovering things and kind of, you know, having my doubts, I started looking a lot on the internet and found out about that they had actually joined the UN the very year that I was baptized in 1991, and was part of the UN for 10 years until 2001. And that really shocked me, like really shocked me, because I didn't think they would ever do something like that.
Right.
Um, and the way they were exposed by the Guardian, which is I think a religious magazine or institution that reports on religion and different things in the UK. So it all started in the UK. This information about the UN and them being part of it. So they came up with an article saying, "Hey, here's the Jehovah's Witnesses. They're part of the United Nations, even though they believe that they're the scarlet-colored wild beast of Revelation. So what's up with that?" And so when the witnesses found out, they actually withdrew their association from the UN. And then there was another article written saying, calling them hypocrites, that, we called them out, and now look at they're leaving because we called them out on what they were doing. And so that was kind of like really the end of the beginning for me with the religion. And um, within another year or so, I was out of religion, and they kicked me out. I had them kick me out because I wanted to prove. I could have just left, but I was like, I wanted to prove to them, that I knew about these things, and these things were true. Because most witnesses still today might not even know that they were part of the UN. You know, they
Right.
hide they hide the facts, and their story about why they joined was a lie too. So, and I exposed that. So,
What do you think your attraction was to joining that religion in particular?
like I said at the time, I did kind of believe in the Bible. I like the Bible prophecies and the different things about Jesus. So, but I didn't like hell. I didn't think it was a fair thing. I didn't like it. Like I was like, God's
Right.
gonna judge me and burn me in hell forever for a few years of things I did here on earth. It didn't make any sense to me. And witnesses didn't believe in hell. They just believed that you're either judged worthy or not of life.
Right.
So, which made more sense to me. So
Right.
I think that was one of the things that attracted me to the religion, and the fact that they were kind of different than the average like Christian religion.
Right. Yeah. I think most religions kind of reflect back to us like where we are in life or what we need or what we value. So I
Mhm.
think that's pretty interesting that, you were attracted to that religion in particular. I think that's cool. So what was your transition out of it, or what helped you outside of those things? Like, did you meet a new group of people, meet new ideas?
Well, when you leave a religion like that, especially if you've been in it for a while, I was in for probably 14 years. A lot of people grow up. And so when you're kicked out, no one talks to you anymore. You're basically what they call disfellowshipped or excommunicated from the church. So no one will associate with you or talk to you again. So with that in mind, you're really like just starting a whole new life from scratch. And for people that have family in the religion, and they've been kicked out, it's really hard for them. I mean, especially if they grew up in it, It's been shoved down their throats, so to speak, but they don't believe it, and yet their whole family's in it, and so they feel caught in between sometimes. Um, Fortunately for me, I don't have that issue, uh, but my wife did somewhat grow up in it. She was young when her mother took to the religion, and so part of her family's in and part of her family's out. So she does talk to some of her family, but not all of her family. So I said that's probably I guess, the worst part of it. So if someone's deep in it and they have a lot of family in it and they don't want to be a part of it, it's a tough road for them to really just start all over again. But
Right.
for me, who had been in out of it, didn't grow up in it, and then left, so it's easier for me to just go back into the world, so to speak, and start anew. And so, like I said, I feel like I live like at least three lives because I had the life before the religion, and then now this other life after the
So,
religion.
what was your step into this world?
Well, I decided that that I was not going to look anymore into like religion or the Bible or anything like that. That I was done with that road, and that I was going to look into anything and everything that I was drawn to by my intuition or by my instincts. And so I did. I started looking into everything. I started looking at everything from aliens to channeling to past life regression. And in the course of doing that, I did end up going to a group past life regression a few years later. Um,
Okay.
Probably, yeah, like 5 years later. But in between then, I had a lot of study of different things. I had moved to Sedona, which is a very spiritual community and places where you can. I said you can believe whatever you want in Sedona. It's just one of those places where you can believe in aliens or whatever you want, dwarfs, fairies. It's all good there.
I
There's a
love
lot.
it. I might need to go. For sure.
So I enjoyed my time there and learning from different people and the different ideas that
Mhm.
that was kind of my start there into really looking into different things.
You
Um,
said you met psychic, Ross Miller?
yeah, when I came back to Massachusetts, there was a psychic named Ross Miller. He does psychic mediumship, past life regression, and I believe a few other things. He's been around for a while. He's really good. He's got good energy.
Mhm.
We had good sessions with him. But I went to his group past life regression, and I had, I guess, I didn't have any idea about past lives, whether they existed or not. So I didn't have any opinion at that point. So I went in with like no expectations, not knowing what was going to happen. And so when I went to this regression in the first part, when I saw the first life, it was a very intense situation where I had seen myself as kind of like a giant, like you would see in the Bible, the Nephilim, like a big giant person. But I was at war. There was two kingdoms at war, and I was fighting for this one kingdom. And we had just about beaten the other kingdom down, especially because of my power and because of what I was doing. Um, and so, as the war was nearing an end, the people of my kingdom, the rulers, were afraid of that power. And so they said, well, once we're done with his usefulness, we're gonna get rid of him. And so I had found out about this plot to betray me, and me being a loyal warrior, got quite mad at it, and I ended up killing all them and killing lots of people in that kingdom that I thought were part of that betrayal.
Okay.
Um, and so after that, I escaped and went to the mountains, and I just lived by myself for many years. And um, people would come up and try to challenge me and kill me, but no one succeeded.
Mm,
Some people couldn't find me. I was pretty well hidden. Um, but over time, there was a new king that was established in this kingdom, and he wanted me to come back and be part of the kingdom again. And I kind of reluctantly went because I actually liked my peacefulness in the mountains, and I kind of got used to that. And I didn't really want to do my warrior work anymore. But because he asked, I went. And when I went into battle, my heart wasn't in it, and so I just allowed myself to be killed, allowed myself to be put down,
Mm,
and so that was the end of the vision. But what was profound about it for me was the energy that I was feeling with it. I mean, the emotions and just of the whole scene.
right.
And in fact, I felt so weird and emotional about it. I got up out of my chair and I went to the bathroom because I felt like I had to almost like release the emotion. Like I didn't want to
Oh,
do it in front of people or something. It just felt weird.
right.
So then I went in again, regained myself, and came back out. And then we did another scene. And this one wasn't quite as intense, but it was kind of a funny one where I was actually a court gesture to a king, uh, a comedian type person, and the king, the king really liked me. I was really funny, but I kept making fun of this one guy in the court, and he poisoned my wine one night, and that's how I died. So that was kind of a short one, but that's what happened to me in that life.
Oh,
And that
wow.
was the end of the session. So after that session, my interest was piqued for sure, and
Right.
I wanted to have more experiences with it. And so through all my investigations that I had been doing online, um, I had this one website, and I remember Dolores Cannon's name being on this website, and with the past life regression. So I went back to this website, and researched her, started watching some of her videos and reading some of her material, and I ended up actually making an appointment with her, I think in 2013.
Okay.
But unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it.
Okay.
So, life events prevented me from getting there. And so I wasn't able to make that. And then the following year, she had passed away.
Yeah.
Um, so after that, there was a little bit of time, and I looked into several different practitioners that I could go to, and for some reason, none of them were working out. And then in 2017, I had connected with this practitioner, a level 3 practitioner that worked with Dolores in the beginning, and she was only a couple of towns away. And
Okay.
so I had a session with her, um, very interesting session. And this lady's very talented in more than one modality. She's been doing this work for a while, and I had seen one whole life and part of another life in that session. But for some reason, I couldn't go to the deeper part, the subconscious part. There was something like I just couldn't stay in trance. So
Okay.
we ended up, and which happens sometimes,
And who
something.
was this practitioner?
Hmm?
Which practitioner was this one?
Um, her name is, what's her last name? For some reason, I'm throwing a blank on her last name. Andre Cordella. And
Okay.
she's from Massachusetts, in Haverhill, Massachusetts.
Okay.
So if you live near there, she's a very good practitioner.
Mhm.
Will take really good care of you. Um,
And this was like your second time?
this is my first time doing QHHT.
Okay.
So the
Okay.
first time wasn't, it was a group setting, wasn't QHHT. Uh,
Okay.
so the group settings are done in like what's called an alpha trance, which is a lighter trance. And then the private sessions are doing in a theta trance, which is a deeper trance, closer to like when just before when you would go to sleep.
Okay.
So, um, so from this session, did I have it before? I can't remember. So I always have trouble placing dates and times and things, but at the same time, I had another session with a lady that was like a shamanic practitioner. Uh,
Okay.
her name is Jenny Schultz, and
Okay.
she was doing soul retrievals.
Yeah.
And so I had this session with her to do these soul retrievals, and so what she does is she goes into this rock in Australia. It's called Ayers Rock, and some people might be familiar with that, some might not be. But it's where the Aborigines are still there from like thousands of years ago. They're still in that place. And so she goes into this rock and meets these elders and finds out about these soul pieces. Or soul pieces are really just um, when you have certain traumas, you can leave like energetic patterns or leave parts of your soul, so to speak, in these places. And so this whole process is to retrieve those parts of those that energy of you and bring it back to you, so that you can become more whole.
Right.
Um, and so the process she goes through is she goes in the rock and she meets the elder. She gets the pieces. They give her some explanations about the pieces, and then you're supposed to do some work to work these pieces out. Well, when I do this with her, at first she can't get into the rock, and she's like, "I can't get in the rock for some reason. I don't know why I can't get into the rock. And I've always been able to get into the rock." and she's
Okay.
like, and then she's like, "Wait a minute. There's someone here that looks like you. That looks like you're going in with me. You look like a Middle Eastern guy, almost like a sheik or something." I'm like, "All
Okay,
right."
that's cool.
So I go in with her to the rock, and she's like, "Oh, you know these people. You're acting like you know them. You know."
Oh, wow.
All right. So come to find out, I do have like roots there in this ancient place. Um, they had all my soul pieces, and there was no like stories or anything connected with them. They were just like, here's your soul pieces, cleaned and pressed. Thank you very much.
Right.
Where most of the people that she does this process with,
Right.
they have all these explanations and these things that they have to do, but for some reason I didn't have to do any of that.
So you didn't have to go on any extra adventures to
No.
retrieve your pieces. So she's in at this point, like, in a meditative state,
Yes.
and then she sees a version of you that's part of that system of,
Yeah.
being a part of that group of people that you were with, that
Right.
she saw.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so did you hand her the pieces or did someone else?
No, the elders are the ones that she meets in the cave, or in
Okay.
one. Yeah.
Okay. But you lead her in there this time because at first she couldn't get in on her own.
Yeah. So some reason she was waiting for me to show up or something. I don't know, because I'm not seeing this. She's seeing these things and telling me about it.
Right.
So, but
So, and when you get all the pieces, like, do you feel something? Like, how was that healing for you?
well, it was after the session. Like I did feel different. I almost felt like there was more of me, or like I felt somewhat renewed a little bit. You know,
Okay.
like I did feel different.
That's cool.
I don't know.
So,
I don't know how else to explain it, but I did feel better after it. And it it definitely answered some questions for me too about some things too. So,
okay.
uh, but the the girl Jenny, she on her website, she had posted this post about a book, and it was all about Atlantis and what happened in Atlantis and all this stuff. And come to find out, it was one of the QHTT practitioners who had produced this book. Her name
Mm,
is Sarah Brexman. Is that how you say her name? Sarah Brexman.
yeah.
Cosme, Sarah Cosme, Brexman Cosme. And so I said, "Oh, that looks interesting. I think I'm going to get that book." So I ordered the book. Um, I read it pretty quick, probably within a week. I read the book, and I was very interested in having a session with her because I felt very connected to this book. So I wrote her an email and I said, kind of told her my life story a little bit about kind of what I've been telling here, and how that I was attracted to her book and wanted to have a session with her. And even though she was booked out, months in advance, she said she might have an opening for me next week, but she didn't know. She'd
Oh,
get
that's
back
cool.
to me. And so 3 or 4 days later, she texted me and say, "Yes, they canceled, so you're in." And so I was in for a session with her. And this session was gonna. I actually kind of, you know how they say don't have expectations, don't, go in with certain expectations, but I actually had some expectations, and I was kind of, uh, yeah, I kind of worked myself up a little bit.
Right, right. I
So
understand.
when I got there, I did see, I saw an Egyptian life, um, me as an Egyptian, and a powerful one. And the vision starts out with me walking out this corridor deep from underground.
Okay.
When I come out to the end, you can see one of the pyramids right in front of me over to the left. And so I'm dressed in all these, like, I got the typical hat on with the almost like the breastplates, and I have this big staff. And with this staff, I point it towards the pyramid, and as I point it, like a blue light laser comes out of it. It strikes the top of the pyramid, and this light goes like throughout the whole land.
Oh wow.
And
Hmm.
and then there was another part, a few other parts. I don't remember it all, but I just remember that um, afterwards, after doing a few things, I went into another pyramid, and I got into this sarcophagus and put the top over me, and then I ended up like kind of traveling through space, almost like traveling through time. Like I felt myself floating. And
Right.
that's kind of how the vision ended. So it was
Right.
kind of a quick vision, but in the subconscious part, we started asking questions about it, and I got some kind of weird answers,
Okay.
some cryptic answers, and um, what was the one I got? One was I forget what the question was, but it said you must use the power without using the power.
Okay.
And because I think I was asking, like, how can I, use my talents, and how can I use these um, my special gifts, to help people.
Right.
And so, and it's weird because it's weird that it said that, because I just viewed this kind of like powerful life,
Right.
where I'm this powerful character, and here I'm told to use some type of power that's not, I guess, powerfully, I guess, not seemingly powerful.
Right.
So, um, which I believe is like, I believe it's your intuition, you know, your intention, that type of thing. Because we doubt that, as humans, we don't think we're that powerful. We don't have this, we think we got to have some type of, like the government, they got to be controlling everything, they got to have this power over everybody. That
Right.
You think that's real power, but it's not. The real power is within
Right.
us, and that power that seems like it's not powerful, but it is.
Right. It's like once you believe it, it becomes real in a sense. Like if you believe yourself to be powerful, then you are powerful, you know.
And everyone's powerful in their own way. They all have their own gifts and talents, and so it's about discovering that your own power within you and what you can do with that
Right. Like you might not have an Egyptian staff that could like
Yeah, I don't have my
laser
laser light
into
staff in this life,
all
but
right.
I do have some things I can use.
Right, right. Yeah, I see what you're saying. And that ties into kind of how technologically advanced Egypt was or Kemet was in the first place. So it
Mhm.
just, it's further proof, kind of like a Bluetooth technology or like, the internet, basically the internet before the internet, electricity, all of those things the
Yeah,
pyramids were used for at the time. And I know Sarah Brexman Cosme, like she wrote a book, I think, about the Sphinx as well.
yeah, the
So she's
Sphinx. Yeah.
yeah, so she's kind of tapped into that. So that's cool that you all linked up and discovered like this Egyptian life.
And I had a continuation of this life in another session with another practitioner, that because I posted that experience in the forum, And so another practitioner is just like, "Oh, I'd like to see where that goes. So you want to have a session with me?" So I'm like, "Okay, let's do it."
Okay.
And so in that continuation, when I started the life, I actually came down because when in QHCT you ride up. It's like you ride this cloud, and then when you come down off this cloud, you come down into a life or whatever, wherever you're going to come into another dimension or wherever planet. Um, so when I came off this cloud, I was this golden monk, and so I looked, oriental, and I had this golden, like flowing robe that glowed, and I just floated down off the cloud. And in front of me was this big fortress. It's like a kingdom, but it's like a fortress too. It's got like towers and soldiers, and it's kind of like black and gray stone. And so when I come down, I'm floating it, and I'm floating right through the gate. And all these people are throwing arrows at me, and they're trying to kill me and doing all this thing, but nothing just goes through me, goes right by me. And I float down, and there's this pyramid inside, like over to the left in this fortress. There's a small pyramid, and so I go into this pyramid. There's one of these staffs in there, the same staff that I had in the last vision, and it's a golden staff. It has like three blue rings on it, and at the top it's like a golden ball.
Hmm.
And so I see that one there. It's sitting on a rack, and then there's another sarcophagus in there. I get in there, and boom, I'm traveling through time again.
Okay.
And so this time I get out, and now I'm the Egyptian guy again. When I
Okay.
get out and I come out in the same place that the Egyptian guy went in before in the last version, the same
Right.
pyramid that I went in. Um, and then if I don't remember all the details, but all I remember is that the, the pyramid itself actually became like a spaceship.
Hmm.
And this spaceship ended up going to this mountain, which was behind that same kingdom that I was in the front of before when I came down off the cloud. Now I'm in the back side, and there's this huge mountain out back, and with a cave on top. And I'm standing on this mountain, and I'm looking down at this kingdom in the valley, and there's this black dragon that the kingdom is fighting with, and the black dragons, blowing fire on people and killing people, and they're trying to contend with this dragon. And so I'm up on the mountain, and when you look up on the mountain, I have another staff now, and this staff is a golden staff with a dragon head on the top, with a snake-like body that wraps around that goes down like this. And so as I stand up on this mountain with the staff, and I go like this with the staff, the dragon turns back and sees me, and he does it. He's pissed because I went into his cave, and that's where I got this staff, and he doesn't want me to have it, but it's too late. I already have it. And so he starts flying towards me. I take the staff, and again, a blue light laser comes out and zaps him, kills him, and he dies off. And so after that, I get back into the pyramid ship, and I travel through time. And in this time, I come out to this like almost like a city in the clouds, and
Okay.
I dock to this place where this almost like pearl, like rose, like colored pearl steps go up to this like castle, or almost like a tabernacle or something. And so I'm walking up these huge steps. I go inside, and then as I go inside, it's just so bright in there with the lights and colors. But I can see someone or something sitting like on a throne, like not too far in the distance. And there's like a bunch of steps going up to that throne. But in front of there's like an altar,
Hmm.
and there's these three places. So, and I have all these staffs. I have the one I had, the other one from the kingdom, and then the one from the dragon. And I take these staffs and I place them in wherever they go, and then I kneel down before this throne, and then that's the end of the vision.
Interesting.
So it's like an interdimensional type of life where it seems like I
Okay.
I kind of did like duties,
Right. It
but without
sounds very Thor, like
yeah.
like that world.
I still don't know what to make of it. I still think about it, and I don't even know. Maybe I'm thinking it might even be a future life, partly, where it's like
Okay.
different times, that I've
Right.
traveled through. So it's like interdimensional. So it's not really a time period in that life, but different periods I traveled through as that entity. Because I asked in another session why I was a monk and a the Egyptian guy. How was I these two people? And he said that it was two different aspects of the same character. That's what I was
Mhm.
told.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Like, yeah, as far as like, the oversoul, and then you have different like you said, characters, So if there's no time, then your other selves are definitely running around doing something else. So,
Yeah,
and under that state, you might be able to see how like they both or all of them how they interact with each other, you
yeah,
know. And also the king's chamber, that's what they kind of said like if you go in there, there probably was like an ancient technology that can make you teleport out your body as well. So I
yeah.
definitely heard that before. So
Because it
that's
seemed like when I went in the first time that it wasn't like the pyramid was moving, but I was.
okay.
And then at the other time, it was like I was actually in the pyramid moving.
Right.
Yeah, so it's definitely like it's interesting. It's definitely interesting.
And people have seen pyramid shaped crafts, that's not like odd.
Yeah, that's not like new or anything. So I
Yeah.
think that's definitely. I think even Bashar has pyramid shaped ships, don't they?
That's
The
a good
SSM.
question. Yeah, that's
I
a good
think they
question.
do.
Okay.
I believe they do. If it's not pyramid, I know it's triangle shaped.
Okay, yeah.
Craft, yeah, triangle shape.
Yeah. I kind of like those triangle shaped crafts, like for sure. I love they're pretty cool. So I do AI art sometimes. So sometimes I'm always like, make a pyramid shaped craft. Like I'm always trying to make a pyramid shaped craft. So
Yeah,
um can you tell me about some of your experiences being a practitioner and putting clients under?
yeah. Um, when I first became a practitioner, you when you first sign up, you have to do 25 free sessions. It's like your internship. So
Okay.
you just find friends or family and different people that you can try it with. And I didn't
Mhm.
really have a lot much friends or family because for one, the religion I was in for 14 years, no one's talking to me, and none of them are going to do it.
Right, right.
So I'm like, how am I going to find these people?
Yeah.
So I remember what the first one I went to was a group session, and Dolores, part of the course they have this group session that they teach you that you can start doing these group sessions. So I said, well, I'll start doing some of these group sessions, maybe at some yoga studios in different places, and then if people want to have a free regular session, then that's great. That's kind of what I did. I went to these different yoga studios and I set up the group sessions, and then I offered my free sessions in order for them to like experience that.
Okay, that's pretty cool. And
And
do you,
so,
uh-huh.
oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry. Keep going for sure.
So my first couple of sessions went really good. In fact, my second one was pretty interesting. This lady, just because what we do is we usually go into a past life, we'll see a past life, maybe one, maybe two, and then the process is to go into the what's called the subconscious and connect with other parts of yourself to get information, other guides, your higher self, or other beings. And so, as I did this process, she connected with herself or with a being. I don't. believe it was herself in the future. A lot of times that's the case. Um, with a being on one of the planets in the Orion section. And she was this tall, kind of like whitish gray alien, and she lived in this like a dome building. And in these domes, it must have had some type of technology where they could see like different areas of the galaxy. And her job was to like um, kind of watch the galaxy, and she said make sure that people were playing by the rules, so to speak.
Mhm.
um, and so um, I asked her, all right, well, why are you watching the galaxy? What are you looking for? And then she says, to make sure no one's crossing boundaries. And I'm like, well, what boundaries? Who are these people? And they described it that she said that they were terrible to us, and that they were parasites, and that they weren't like, they were people without souls, and that they were just here to like, create chaos and to siphon off energy.
Mm.
And then she went into about how like the Great Awakening, and how like, people are waking up, and how it's important to what she called almost like going with the flow and being present. She said like, just pretend you're in water, and you're just like floating. You're just going with the waves. You're just going with the flow. So through this transition and all this chaos that we are experiencing, and probably going to experience more and more as we shift through this transition, um, that was her advice. This alien's advice was that we go with the flow, we be present, and basically be ready for anything. Because we so much is changing, and so quickly. I mean, look how much has changed since
Right.
September 11th, 2001. It's
Mm.
really a big, that was a big, changing time. Ever since that date, really, things have like sped up so quickly. I mean, the internet grew from like, you know, AOL dial up to like where it is now. I mean,
Right.
we couldn't even have this conversation,
Right.
20 years ago. Excuse me.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was pretty cool. So you said she was an Octorian?
She was from Orion. Excuse
All
me.
right. No
Excuse my
problem.
voice a little here. And she
Oh,
said that
mhm.
well, I had said, all right, who are these people? And she was saying that they were parasites, and then I said like the reptilians, and she's like, yes. So like the Anunnaki, the reptilians, they had
Okay.
gone through their planets and done the same thing that they're trying to do to us.
Mm. Okay.
And so
S-
they say that, but it's not going to happen to us. That they have this, we have support. That they're here to support us, and that there's other beings here supporting us, and that
Right.
we're going to get through this.
So have you heard of the Orion Wars? Is that kind of like that's like ancient, isn't it? If you have you heard of that?
I've heard of it. Yeah, I don't know much. I had one client that had a session, and a lot. It was about that somewhat. I don't remember the details, but
Okay.
he was part of those.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, because you mentioned like they were from Orion, so I'm just like, what is their role? I'm still trying to wrap my head around all
Well,
the
it
type,
seems like
all the categories: the Orions, the Arcturians, Assyrians.
yeah, there's a lot out there. I mean, it's like it's hard to. Um, I guess the way I approach things is like if it's if if it's out there, then it has relevance to something. So
Yeah.
whether it's true or not true, that's all depends on your own perception. But um, I believe everything has relevance. So um, that's why I like to learn so much. The more you know, the more you learn, the more you take in, the more
Yeah.
you can kind of get a better rounded picture of everything.
Right. Because honestly, like I've tried to ignore the whole reptilian thing, like very
Yeah.
much so. Like I don't
Well,
even
there's
know.
a lot of
But
disinformation about it too. So, I
right.
mean, because if you think a lot of it's based on ancient stories, written in cuneiform tablets, and some of it is based on modern day channeling.
Mm.
And so you kind of take the two and see what you get out of that. And that's kind of how I look at it. I look at, all right, what did they say in the past about these beings, and what's being said now, and what seems plausible to me. you know and I
Right.
try to look at many sources as I can, as far as like information like that.
Right. Because the reptilians definitely get a bad rep, you know. And one thing I did hear, just an idea, was, imagine being in the presence of something that you view as a predator. Like you might naturally feel like prey. I feel like I've heard somebody say that.
Yeah.
So it's like, that fear might be just from our understanding of what they are. Or they might be good ones and bad ones. I'm just saying, you know, just by their features alone might scare us half to death. Like, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, so
Well,
yeah,
there's good and bad humans too, right?
right.
I'm
You
sure
know,
there's plenty of humans that you never want to meet.
yeah,
And just like you wouldn't want to meet certain aliens, but some you might want to. Some might have the same values or same, you know, ethics as some humans would.
right. But at the same time, I feel like, you shouldn't feel fear in the presence of them anyway, right? Like if they were good, then you would feel that
Well, the
love
fear
as
is good. The fear is just like the not knowing. You're
well.
not familiar. So you
Yeah,
always have fear when you of the unknown.
right,
Is this person like interested in just a relationship or talking or exchanging information, or is he out to harm me or get something from me?
right. Because
Because
some
there's
people,
both
yeah.
types out there.
Yeah, because some people might say, well, I had this encounter with an extraterrestrial, like a gray or something. And in the moment, they were so scared, like freaked out. Like they might
Yeah,
even have experienced some sort of physical symptom of being in their presence that may not have felt good. But then when they leave, they're left with like new information that they wouldn't have thought about had they not had that experience,
yeah,
like new ideas, new abilities even. So it's like, how are we viewing it as positive or negative, definitely plays a role into how we feel, if you feel what I'm trying to say.
yeah. Because I know there was a lady, and I'm trying to think of her name, and she wrote like I think 3 books about she had contact with gray aliens,
Mhm.
and these books were all like positive books that she had written about her experiences and what she had learned from them.
Okay.
Um, but most of the information about gray aliens is negative.
Mhm.
So, um, are there positive gray aliens? I don't know. Are there just or are they bad? Are they all bad? I'm not sure, but I couldn't say for sure. But um,
Mhm.
I just go on to think of like individual personal experience. If someone's having a positive experience and they're aware of themselves and they're aware of you know what they're doing, then that's good for them. If
Right.
someone's having a negative experience with some type of being, then that they have to you know understand that that's not what they want, or unless they want to be part of that. Sometimes we agree to things before we get here. you
Exactly.
know so, and not knowing that, because you forget, when you come here, you forget some things that you agree to.
One thing I do notice, or one thing that I am learning from Sarah Brexman Cosme, is that we're all reflections of each other. And I'm learning this through her hypnosis and what the higher selves of the individuals have to say.
Hmm.
And simply that, like we're all reflections of the other, via good or bad. And like you say, like we do make these contracts to participate in certain experiences with one another. And I guess that's how I'm trying to look at the extraterrestrials or the interdimensionals. Basically, they're all extensions of ourselves.
Yeah, I have a few theories on those things, so I don't know if I want to bring them out right now, but
Okay.
just from my esoteric, I guess, studies, like studying
Yeah.
Gnostic materials and different things, and information on what's called archons.
Right.
So, um, and so the archons are basically like, well, I'll get into that another time because
That's fine.
that's another big story right there. But
Yeah.
um, that's the
Okay.
only. I would say there's a difference between archons and aliens.
Okay.
Some
Okay.
some aliens are archons and some are probably not archons. So it's, I guess, distinguishing the difference.
Okay. All
And
right.
archons would be like a negative influence on mankind.
Okay.
So just to put it, in a brief way,
Right.
like the reptilians or like the Anunnaki, but yet they're still part of our development.
Hmm.
But they definitely like to overstep their bounds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna do an episode on like talking about the archons and the Gnostic texts. Like I would love to do that with you, like
Mhm.
for our next session. So one of the things that we spoken about was the healing aspects of QHHT and BQH. Can you
Yeah.
tap into some of those experiences you had?
Yeah. Well, one experience that I had with a woman, she had a son that had passed away like 8 years ago, and she had still been grieving a lot about it. In fact, I think she was having a lot of just pain in her body and different symptoms from the grief. And so she decided to like come in and see if I could help her. And so after having her session, um, she came in on a walker when she came in. She came in very slowly, just very, looked like she was in a lot of pain. It took her a while to sit down, to get comfortable. And at the end of the session, she got right up off the couch. She almost didn't, it almost looked like she didn't even want to use her walker. She felt really good. She was almost like carrying it instead of pushing it and using her weight. Um, and so she said she felt great. She felt better about her son. And then, I didn't hear from her for a few days. Um, and so then she wrote a review on my Facebook page and said that she went home that weekend and she did a garage sale, which was selling all the stuff in her garage. And she did not use her walker the whole weekend. She
Mm.
had such a release of this anxiety about her son and his death that had really released a lot of the pain. And I think a lot of the pain that we get in the body is from emotions and from mental uh, what's this thing I want to say, mental and emotional
Yeah.
pain basically that is put into the body. And when we can release those mental and emotional traumas from the mind, we can also release the pain from the body. And
Right.
so through the process of the session, she was able to see her son's death in a better light. She said that now, when I think about my son, I only have good thoughts, I have the good memories, and I think about all the good stuff. Where
Mm.
before the session, all I thought about was missing him and all the bad things. So
Right.
she said from the session, she was healed of these emotional and mental aspects, which also brought healing physically to her.
Right. And that's that mind body connection.
Yes. And I learned the mind body connection actually before I even got into this work. I myself had a lot of back pain,
Mm.
and I've had, I did laborious jobs like truck driving and trash and all these things, and I injure my back quite often. I have a lot of pain in my back. And so at this time, I had thrown my back out, so to speak, and it was the middle of winter. I wasn't working. I hadn't really done anything to like throw my back out. Like I wasn't like I lifted anything heavy. It was
Mhm.
like I bent down and I picked up a pen and went, "Oh, my back!" And then I was like flat on my back. Like literally, it was like that. It was that
Right.
stupid. And I'm like, how can my back be so like just in so much pain, just from that. It's
Mhm.
like I re-injured it or something. And so it didn't make sense to me. But here I am flat on my back in bed. And so my wife, she's like, she likes to read books, and she's a an avid reader, and she would give me a book whenever I'd have an issue. And
Mhm.
so she found this book called Healing Back Pain by Dr. John Sano. And Dr. John Sano wasn't a metaphysical guy, he wasn't a spiritual guy. He was just a doctor that, like, I guess had some awareness, about the connection between the mind and the body. And observing different things in his practice over the years, he observed that, you know, a lot of people had pain, but he didn't know why they would have pain because, for instance, say you have 10 different people that have a certain disc problem, so say their the last disc or their second to last disc in their back is deteriorating.
Mhm.
And every person had an MRI, they all have the same like basic symptom. And out of these 10 people, six of them don't really have any pain. Um, a couple have some pain and some have severe pain. And so he's thinking about, well, why all these different pain levels? Why are these different pain levels? And come to find out that the people that had the most pain actually had the most trauma. Like they were in a
Mhm.
very, you know, terrible car accident, or they went through some type of, traumatic event that even though they got injured, the pain stays with them more, and they hold on to that pain more in the mind and in the body. Where the other
Mm.
people that had the same injury or the same, it didn't seem to bother them. They were fine
Right.
in pain, or they barely had any
Mm.
pain. And so he, through this, observation, he said, well, trauma in the mind and with the emotions comes out in the body, he says. And he discovered that, he called it, I think, something something about the muscles when the when you have a trauma and it goes into the body,
Mhm.
that the muscles will actually like deprive, you'll actually be, your body will get deprived of oxygen in that area. Like your mind will actually deprive the oxygen to the muscles, and then they start to cramp up, and that's why you get the pain because of the mental and emotional connection to it.
Wow.
And so we call this tension meiosis syndrome or something like that.
Okay.
Meiosis has something to do with the muscles, and so when you have this extreme stress or trauma, then you get this stress in the body, and it becomes tight. It becomes deprived of the oxygen, and it becomes crampy. And so he noticed when you could release these different emotional patterns or stresses or mental stresses, that the pain would go away.
Right.
And there's been much written about this, especially through even Julia Candon has a book out called Soul Speak,
Yeah.
which talks about the different pains and issues that you can have in the body due to these type of things.
Mm.
And also Louise Hayes.
Louise
she,
Hayes.
yeah, Louise Hayes. She wrote a book called "You Can Heal Your Life."
Okay.
Yeah, and that was all a lot about also the psychosomatic pain is what they call it. When,
Right. That's the word.
yeah, psychosomatic sounds more
Right.
dramatic than it is, but it sounds like you're psychotic or something, but it isn't. It just means that psychologically, you
Mhm.
know, when the mind
Right.
can't handle something, it buries it in the body and it comes
Right.
out. It can come out in any form, like Dolores says, like anger comes out in cancer a lot of
Right.
times. So if you have cancer, a lot of it can be connected with anger,
Right.
and different emotions and different things come out in different parts of the body.
Yeah.
So
Facts. Yeah. And so, in one of your stories that we talked about, you mentioned someone saw better. They had better eyesight after one of your sessions.
yeah, that was one of my clients. She had I've been using. I had started using BQH with
Okay.
this client, and she started to have different experiences, different types of visions, and a lot of them had to do with like past loved ones that had passed away in her life, like her mother.
Okay.
And so she had been having trouble with her eyesight, and in this session, when in BQH, you kind of go through this vortex or come out this other side of this vortex. And when she was coming through it, she said there was like this light that came towards her and went like right into her eyes. And as it came into her eyes, she saw her mother, like the face of her mother. And the whole vision was like her mother in this like big room with all these people, like almost like a party or something in heaven. But they were all together and they were all like, relatives or related to her. And there was all
Okay.
these different messages coming in for her through this. And um, yeah, she had, after the session, she said her eyes were like working a lot better than they were before, and that they would get better over time.
Awesome. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. And so, nearing the conclusion of our first interview, I wanted to ask you about something that you're currently working on that you seem very passionate about and very great at, and that is automatic writing.
Yes, my wife had bought a program. Um, it might have even been a year ago or so about automatic writing by, I think his name is Michael Sandler, and he does a great job with this class. And so I've always wanted to write a book, and I've had ideas for books, but I've never quite gotten into the habit of finishing one or getting only so far. And so with this automatic writing, I said, well, maybe this will get me into a good routine, of writing. And so what you do in this automatic writing is the best times to do it is usually in a state where you're tired or more in a trance state, almost like when you're going into a session. And so I would do it when I first get up. As soon as I get up, and they would have music that you can listen to, like that would keep you in like a theta state. So I put the music on, meditate for a little bit, and then there's a process that you would ask these questions. And when you ask these questions, you would just write whatever sometimes your hand just writes it. But for me, it would come in my mind like the words. And as soon as the word comes in, I'm writing it. I'm not thinking about it at all. But it's just as it comes in, I write what the first things that come into my mind. And so I did this for like, I think it's supposed to be a 21-day program. I did it for 17 days, and for some reason I stopped doing it.
Okay.
And a few weeks went by, and then I was like, you know what, I got to get back to that automatic writing. I don't, I want to finish that. It felt like I only did it for like a week. I didn't even realize that I had done it for like 17 days straight. And so I went back and I read through all the things that I had written, and I was quite actually shocked at some of the things that had been written,
Mhm.
and so now I'm making this into a book project basically,
Woohoo! Yeah.
because
We love that.
I like what has come through, and so I'm going to finish the 21 days. That's going to be kind of like the first part of it, and then I'm going to switch the questions to different questions and see what I'm just going to change the process a little bit and see what I get
Yeah.
in the next stage.
Honestly, I'm telling you, like the first couple that you read over with me, I was teary-eyed, like I was just like, "Ooh, this is touching. This is touching my heart right now." Like I really needed that and I resonated with it. So definitely keep going, keep doing the automatic writing. It's beautiful.
It's a good way to connect to your higher self or to your guides, because if you're looking for a way to connect, say if you have trouble meditating, or you have maybe sometimes even trouble trusting, information you're getting in your head. Um, the automatic writing is good because once you get into that state, and then you're asking yourself the question, the whole thing of it is that you don't think about it. It's like literally like the first things you're thinking about, you write down. You just let it flow as it comes through. And then if it stops, then you go on to the next question or you go to the next part. And it really starts to flow. And it, in the beginning I started doubting it because I'm like, this stuff sounds too good. It makes me, it's also that, it's, I don't, am I making this up? Yeah, that's the only thing. It's like when you go, people say they come to a session, they're like, I seen this life and it was quite fantastic. Am I making this stuff up? It's like, you can't make this stuff up. This is, you know, this is coming from your mind. This is coming from another part of you where, you know,
Right.
your mind doesn't create these things.
Right. Yeah, don't doubt, just believe.
Yeah.
Just
But
believe.
that's the hardest part is trusting, because if you think about it, there's so many deceitful things out there. Religion's deceitful, the government's deceitful. There's a lot of misinformation out there. So when we're trying to establish a connection to our higher self, we want to make sure we're connected to our higher self and we're connected to, the information that we need that's beneficial to us, and we're not being interfered with. So,
Right.
um, so that takes practice. We have to. If it's not resonating with you, it's probably not coming from your higher self. It's either your ego arguing with you in your mind, or you're getting some other type of
So
something coming through.
that's a good question to ask. So, can you distinguish, or how can someone that's new to meditating and BQH and hypnosis differentiate between their ego and the higher self?
Well, for me, that's easy because the ego is always going to be like what you should do, what you could do, what you ought to do, or what you didn't do. You
Hmm.
know, Something from spirit's never going to be like that. If it's a true like guidance, it's
Okay.
going to be for your benefit. It's going to sound like a parent. Like someone that cares about you and someone that wants to show you the way.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's coming from your own mind, then you're going to know the difference. So you just have to. It takes a while to distinguish that, but that's why I like the automatic writing too, because it just comes right through.
Right.
It comes as soon as it's in your mind. You're writing it. So there's no time to doubt it. If you're sitting there doubting it or thinking about it, then you're not doing the process right. You know.
Right. Okay. Well, can't wait on your automatic writing course. I'll definitely be signing up for that one. And I really appreciate you coming on to the Between Worlds podcast and talking about these topics with me. I hope we can do a part two where we can talk about tips on meditating. We can talk about more of the Gnostic texts and any other ideas that you're interested in. So once again, I'd like to thank you so much for stopping by. Do you have any last words for the audience before you leave?
Just if you're interested in hypnosis, whether it's QHCT or BQH, or just having that type of experience, you're welcome to join my group on Facebook. It's simply called QHTT and BQH Hypnosis. And then my business is called Love, Light, and Consciousness Hypnosis. You can find my page on Facebook too.
Excellent. Definitely make sure you follow Mr. Chuck Page. I will leave his information down below in the description. All right, y'all. Thank you so much and have a great day.